Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of Pause, Sip, and Ponder. If this is your first time, welcome. Thank you for joining us. And if this isn't, thank you so much for joining us here once again. Thank you so much for your love and support that you guys continually give me. It really means the world to me, really. And hopefully this month has really brought some new opportunities for you. You've met new people. You've gotten new revelations on what's to come this year, and next week's already a new month, so time really is going by fast. But I'm so excited for you guys and love to hear about your soon-to-be projects or things or goals that you guys have. So my life is absolutely even busier. I am back in school. Work is even busier. Life's chaotic, but that'll never stop me from posting and keeping up to date with you guys. If anything, this podcast really helps me get through my week. So today I have a special guest. I have Bailey, who is someone I've met not too long ago, but even then our bond is so great, and I really, really look up to her because of her passion, her positivity, and just her heart is just so amazing and so inspirational to me. And one of the things that we really relate on is our love for people and our passion for people, and just I guess in our work field, customer service, and just really connecting with people. And even if we try to bring the best smiles out of people, not every day is full of sunshine and rainbows. And this is us talking about our dealings and our experience through depression. This is a topic that I've never really shared with everybody, something very, very personal to me, but I'm always open about. And yeah, this is our experiences through it, our accomplishments and gainings from it, and also our perspectives on how society portrays depression today. And I don't share in depth with everything that I dealt with within my depression period, but I'll definitely use that or save that for another episode and really get in depth with that. But even if this is a kind of a depressing topic, we also give some encouragement for you guys, whoever is dealing with something right now. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoy. So this is a pretty deep and dark topic to talk about. So we're gonna start off a little bit light. How do you feel right now? What's up?
Awesome. I feel okay, to be honest. It's such a funny question because I feel like that question gets asked a lot. Whenever you see someone, they're always like, how are you? And I always find myself kind of lying a little bit because you don't want to just walk up to someone and be like, well, I feel a little depressed today, but how are you? But yeah, depression is something that I struggle with every day, and even if I'm not feeling it mentally at the moment, it definitely also takes a toll on you physically. And anxiety also kind of plays a role in it too. But today, I feel okay. I feel like that's kind of not super great, not super bad, but just okay.
Definitely. I think it's definitely, what does that mean? It's okay not to be okay.
Yeah, it's okay not to be okay.
Yeah.
You don't have to be happy all the time.
Yeah. And for me, so for her, in her experience with depression, I know it went into a turn of where it's, she actually had to get medical attention, right? And for me, I guess it was just, in the years of puberty and emotions, but it doesn't mean that it was nothing, but of course, she probably went through something more extreme, as well as you guys. You guys will never know exactly how you guys feel. I think one misconception is that, you can really understand someone truly, but I think the only person who you can really understand is yourself. So we're going to talk about our experiences in that. And for me, how I am, life's interesting. And it can really do a lot to your emotions every single day. I think every day is a constant battle with your emotions, but also it's kind of a nice thing to be able to feel these things. I guess just to start, what is your story, Bailey, on your experiences with depression?
So I feel like I've been experiencing it ever since I was a kid. As long as I can remember, I've had to deal with it. I remember even some of my parents' friends describing me as a very angry child. And I don't think my parents knew it back then, but one of the symptoms or behaviors that depression can cause is like extreme irritability. And ever since I was a kid, when I was in school, like I would feel that I had trouble making friends, and also my grades would slip a lot because it was really hard for me to focus. But I feel like it started probably when I was a kid. Part of it's probably genetic, just because it ran in my family. My great-grandfather had depression, my grandmother had depression, and my mom has depression. So we've all experienced it.
Yeah.
And then also when I was a kid, my parents got divorced when I was really young. Okay, voice. And I had to like switch houses every week. And my parents weren't the best at communicating, and I felt like I was kind of middleman a lot, which definitely took a toll, because my therapist says that I kind of have like, I had like an adult complex when I was a kid, which isn't very healthy.
Yeah.
But that definitely played into how I felt a lot.
Yeah. So it was a mix of genetics and eventful things in your life.
Yeah, definitely. And when I think I was 14 when I had to be hospitalized for the first time.
Wow.
I was feeling like extremely suicidal. I didn't know what to do. And thank God my mom was very open-minded. She ended up taking me to the hospital, and that was terrifying. Hospitalizations can be very scary, but I'm really glad that I went, because I really feel like if I didn't, then I don't really know if I would still be here today.
Right.
Like, it definitely saved my life, like, as scary as it was.
Yeah.
But because of my depression, like, I had to drop out of high school, because I literally couldn't get out of bed anymore. I was hospitalized, inpatient twice, and partial hospitalization, I've done it 4 times.
Wow.
So far. But if you're ever, like, going through something and things are getting really bad, I feel like I got more out of the partial hospitalization program, just because I feel like that's when they really start going through coping skills and things that you can do to make yourself feel a little bit calmer, like when you're going through depressive episodes. But if you really don't feel safe, it's important to go to the hospital, because they'll provide a safe environment for you and really take care of you and make sure that you're okay.
Since you experienced it like at a young age, how did you know? Like, did someone literally tell you, I guess how they say is like you're diagnosed with depression, right?
Yeah.
Or were you questioning, like, why do I feel this way? Like, how did you finally accept it, or how were you told?
I was having like a lot of frustration. Like, I remember like laying in bed, like crying myself to sleep every night. I felt sad all the time, and I didn't know why. And it wasn't just like sadness, it was like darker than that. Like, I felt unmotivated. I really didn't see like a light in anything anymore. Like, I didn't want to make friends, I didn't want to go to school, I didn't want to do anything. I just felt like giving up. And at that point I didn't even know what giving up meant, because I was probably like 11 or 12 when things started really getting bad.
Yeah.
So I just knew that like I felt stuck and scared and just like isolated. And I didn't know why I was feeling like that. When I was a kid, like, I went through some traumatic stuff, and that definitely like played a part into it. But back then, like, I didn't know why. Like, I couldn't understand what was going on in my head. And I remember like holding my head and like just like sitting in my room crying, like asking for it to stop, because I felt like I was in so much mental pain that it almost translated into like physical pain.
Do you think like resisting made it worse? Did you ever feel like, okay, so resisting definitely makes it worse?
Yeah, because then you don't deal with what's going on. If you internalize everything, it's just very like, I feel like, at least for me, because everyone's different, some people like deal with it by internalizing it, but for me, I just would explode if I internalized everything. If I just tried to be happy, which was some advice that I got from like an adult, like when I was a kid, which is honestly the worst thing that you can say to someone who's depressed, because it's definitely not a choice.
No.
Like, I literally felt like I was going to explode. I finally accepted it. I remember I would talk to my mom about it, and because she had been on medication before and she had gone to therapy before, she kind of started to see like what it might be. And she took me to a therapist and took me to a psychiatrist, and then they had me fill out a form, which if you ever go to a psychiatrist or therapist, they'll always make you fill out this same form where it's like, within the past month, like, have you felt unmotivated? And I filled it out, and after that, like, they were like, okay, so you have depression. Honestly, I didn't accept it at first. What helped me was understanding the science of it, because when somebody just says, hey, you have depression, you're just like, okay, so what is that? Like, why are you just telling me that I'm this way? But when I looked at, like, the actual science of it and how it's just, like, it has to do with, like, neurotransmitters and stuff, it becomes a lot less scary. And then after that, I kind of thought of it as, like, just like, oh, it's like a neurotransmitter imbalance. Like, people take vitamin C in the morning, you know, because they don't want to get sick. And so this is the same thing. But how about you? Did you, like, ever go through, like, an acceptance?
For me, so mine was more of, I think it really does, because my brother is experiencing kind of like the internally like what I went through. I think every, you know, preteen experiences, you know, all your hormones are just like crazy and you don't know what you want, you don't know how to feel. So it was definitely that, but also some traumatic and eventful things that happened in my life that contribute to it. So it was never to the extreme where I had to get medical help, but it did cause some damage in my life. For me, I started feeling it towards, or experiencing it, I guess, from the age of 12 to like 14. My mom's past relationship, like on and off, it was very confusing because, as you know, if for someone who doesn't have a father, you know, he was the only one that was really a father figure. But I was confused because the things he was doing, the things he was saying, you know, the constant fights between those two really made me question, then, is this what it's supposed to be? And then people are telling me, you know, other things. So it was very conflicting because I didn't know what is true and what it wasn't. Also, you know, there was bullying involved. There was, and I would accept these things. Of course, you know, there are some horrible people out there. And for me, I'm not someone to really hold grudges towards people. Like, throughout my whole life, whoever like bullied me back then, like, I never held a grudge. Instead, I would like take it. Like, I would swallow it and like accept it. So that's what really ate me up. And it just, I didn't know what was going, because in the moment you don't really, especially at that age, you don't really sit down and be like, okay, I need to fix I just need to change my mindset. No, at the time I just like, okay, this is how my life is going to be forever. And so there wasn't really a point where I accepted it. It was only later in my years where I was like, oh, so that happened, and it happened for a reason, and now I'm the person I am today. So, but yeah, that's kind of it was very dark. Just like you, like, I had suicidal thoughts definitely at a young age, and I guess in my home, talking it out isn't really a thing. It's very hard to open up, especially to your parents. And what are you going to tell your parent, you know, like, at least mine, like, oh, Mom, I'm depressed. Usually, you know, you would want her to respond in a way that's like, oh, like, you know, she'll do something about it or ask you about it. But instead, you know, I knew that what she was going to say is that, you know, she's going to point it at herself and be like, okay, then what am I doing? Am I doing something wrong? Like, are you not grateful? Or like, you know, stuff like that. So I just never had the need to tell anybody about it. So all these events were piling up, and I found myself in the bathroom. I was doing self-harm at the time, and I just had enough. And then, like, all I can really remember is that I had like a knife in the bathroom. And this, I'll keep in mind, I was like 12, guys. And that's a pretty scary thing, but at the time, like, I was used to it. Like, I was just, and I don't know, I was just thinking of how life could be better without me. Like, I there's no reason for me to be here. But suddenly, like, I just had a voice in my head just tell me, like, you know, your life's not over. Like, there's so much more in store for you. And I just thought about my family, and then just thought about everything and what could be lost if I did that. So it was really, that's why, like, I really wanted to know more about those dealing with depression who need medical attention, because for me it was different, and where I kind of figured it out by myself. So that's kind of how my story is.
Yeah. And it's interesting too because I feel like a lot of parents, when kids are feeling that way at like a young age, I feel like a lot of parents tend to kind of brush it off, like, oh, like, you're just a kid,
a phase,
like,
yeah.
you know, it's just a phase, like, you'll get over it.
Yeah.
But as a kid, like, I was definitely able to experience those feelings. They were very real, and they really, really impacted me. And I feel like I wish that, at least, like, when I was growing up, like, it was taken more seriously earlier on, and that I had gotten into therapy earlier on, because I feel like that would have, like, helped me a lot. But because, like, I didn't really start getting like constant help until I was probably in like 9th grade. I don't know, like I just wish that I had like had that support earlier, because I feel like it would have helped me a lot.
Yeah, of course, like we can't go back and then change things, unfortunately, but yeah, I feel the same way. But also at the same time, I feel like everything happens, you know, for a reason and at a perfect timing. So yeah, I feel like everyone has a different story. Like literally everyone has a different story. They got help at different times. They could get it early. They can never get it at all. And I think the most important thing is what happens after and what happens during, rather than like the actual thing itself. So what were some things other than, I guess, therapy that helped you deal with the depression?
Well, when I went to therapy, they gave me a list of coping skills. And I'm sure that if you, like, look on Google, like, list of coping skills, it'll give you a list of,
how
like,
to not be sad.
Yeah, like, over 100 things that you can do.
Right.
These coping skills became, like, vital to me. And some of them, it's just things that you like doing that you know can calm you down. Like, when I used to self-harm, like, my alternative to that was learning how to play guitar, learning how to play ukulele, because, like, the strings would, like, hurt my fingers, and it sounds weird, but it's like a weird replacement for what I did. Kind of like taking like the unhealthy like coping habits and then finding ones that are more productive and like make you feel calmer. Playing ukulele, playing guitar, writing, reading was a big one. I started collecting books, and then for the times when I was really, really panicked, because I would have these things called flashbacks where I would be kind of like taken back to a traumatic event, and like there were times where like if you touched me I would like scream. Like it's kind of hard to describe, but I feel like I wasn't like consciously like there in the moment. Like I would just be completely taken back to like a traumatic experience, and like I would just kind of have to like come down from it and come out of it. And I'm still learning how to deal with those. Some of the coping skills that I learned that have helped me a lot are to grab ice. If you hold like ice in your hands, or especially there's something that triggers the dive reflex, where if you take a bowl of ice water, you dunk your head in it and you hold your breath for 30 seconds and then you come back up and then you do it again and you repeat it, it actually slows down your heart rate. So if you're having a panic attack, it helps like calm your body down and kind of bring you back to like...
That's really interesting.
Yeah,
I'll try that, because I have so much anxiety sometimes. It's insane. And I'm just like... Wow, so that's interesting. For me, writing was a great help. Like, I still have the journals today, and like looking back at it and just like saying how I felt, it really helped me, because again, like I feel like the only person that really can understand is yourself. So that really helped me. I didn't really have like a lot of resources. Like I never went to like a therapist or a counselor. I think one was because I was ashamed at the time. I had to grow up at like as I guess adult at a young age. So and people always knew me to be someone who was very positive. I always had to, you know, show the impression that I was strong. So it's like I never really seeked for that help. But I did have, you know, like friends that really helped me in that. And it was really that, you know, understanding that time, although it goes by fast, like you have so much time to grow and to develop. So I really took one step at a time with my depression. And like I really encourage like reflecting, but just to like, you know, just to think, other than just like sitting and just dwelling in your thoughts and your emotions. I feel like having time to yourself really helps. So that really, really helped me. So you're still dealing with depression till this day. Of course you can't cure it like over one day with like one dose of something. But would you say that you're, I don't know, getting better is a proper way to say it, or just...
I always say, like, I don't know, everyone is always like, oh, it gets better. I always say, like, it gets easier.
Yeah.
Because I feel like
true.
You learn how to handle your emotions a little bit better. Like, before, if I was having a panic attack, I would just let the train in my head run off the tracks and, like, racing thoughts everywhere. Like, I wouldn't try and catch myself and be like, hey, I'm feeling anxious. I should go do a coping skill right now and calm myself down. Yeah. Because you kind of, you learn how to catch it in advance. And I don't exactly know, like, when it exactly clicked in my head where I was, like, able to identify when I should go use my coping skills or when I should go, like, take a nap or take a break.
Yeah.
But I feel like it wasn't until, like, this year. So it took me a very long time. When I really started to figure out how to catch myself when I'm feeling that way.
But quick question. I know, like, I don't know. It's kind of a weird question, but do you ever, like, know or feel the difference when, like, you're depressed because of, you know, what's going on in your head, like, medically, and compared to, like, where it's actually appropriate to be depressed? I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah. So, like, it's interesting because this was something I was talking to my therapist about, where I felt like as I was growing up, I was depressed because of a lot of, like, self-doubt, like, high expectations I kept for myself that were, like, unrealistically high.
Right.
That I could never meet, and just, like, a lot of body image issues, like, self-confidence issues, stuff like that. And then there was always, like, the other issues, like my parents and, like, outside issues that would affect it. But I felt like most of my depression was caused by my own, like, thoughts about myself. And for me, like, what really helped me kind of turn that around, and I'm still working on it, like, definitely still working on this, because I feel like depression caused by your own thoughts about yourself versus depression caused by, like, an outside event are really, really hard to deal with. Like, especially, at least for me, like, I feel like they're harder to deal with. Yeah. Just because, I don't know, loving yourself is just hard. Like, it's really tough. And for me, like, I just try to journal about, like, what I like about myself, you know? And when I first started journaling, I couldn't really think of a lot, which sounds really sad, but it's true. Like, I really, if somebody asked me, like, oh, like, you know, why do you think people are friends with you? Like, why do you think people like to talk to you? Like, I would not be able to answer. I'd probably have to lie. You know, I really didn't feel like I was a good person. I didn't feel like I had anything special about me. I didn't really feel like I was good at anything that I did. Right. And I always doubted myself. And whenever I started feeling like, hey, you know what? You're good at this. Like, for example, like, customer service. That's something that I've always loved doing. Right. And just quick reason why is just because after everything that I've gone through, whenever I've gone somewhere and I've gotten, like, great customer service, if I'm having a really bad day, it's always turned my day around. Yeah. And I think that that's amazing that, like, you can turn someone's day around in 5 minutes. Definitely. And so for me, like, that was just, like, really cool that I have an opportunity to do that whenever I'm working somewhere. And it's funny because I feel like I only, like, realized that I love doing this, like, last year. And I was talking to my manager at the coffee shop I worked at. Yeah. Because I was thinking about, like, going into law or something, like, in school. And then I told him, I was like, hey, like, I feel like I would be good at customer service. And he was like, I feel like you would be good at that too. And after that, I just kind of started committing myself to it and, like, telling myself that, like, this is something you're good at. Like, you have an opportunity to turn people's days around. Like, you can do it. Yeah. And even if I didn't believe it at first, I kept telling myself that I could, and I kept journaling about it. And I feel like somewhere in my head something clicked where it was just like, okay, like, believe in yourself. Like, you are good at this. And you almost, after, like, doubting yourself for so long and then all of a sudden being like, hey, I'm good at this, you can almost feel like kind of cocky in a way. Like, no, that makes sense. Like, it feels weird at first. And I feel like
it's kind of like that pride, but it's like not a bad one. It's a good one because, like I said, like it's a constant battle, and for you to know that you literally overcame that, like when the time that usually your depression would hit, it didn't come because you kind of put yourself over that.
And it's like, it's funny because when you start feeling like any sort of self-confidence, that it's a lot of it's weird. Like, and a lot of people that like maybe don't suffer from depression just like normally have, and then like what you're feeling is like totally normal and like a good thing, but it doesn't feel like a good thing. Like you feel like
totally
you shouldn't be feeling like that because you got so used to feeling a different way. I don't know. But that's why I feel like dealing with like depressing thoughts about yourself is just so hard, because even when you turn it around, you almost feel like maybe guilty or just like you shouldn't be feeling like that, which is just like
definitely I completely agree with that. I think the thing that we relate on, that we both have same interest in, is helping other people, talking to other people, really making people's day. So that's something we both have in common. But this is something I've been thinking about. Like, do you ever, as much as it's rewarding to us to help other people, do you ever find yourself like constantly helping people where you forget that you need to help yourself? Do you ever like feel that way ever?
Yes. All the time. That's why it's so important to like check in on yourself. And I recently started doing this in the past few months, where like I'll have like a mood tracker or like a day tracker where every day I'll track my energy, my focus, how much I slept, and like my mood that day. Because I feel like I become so... Well, that's the thing about like depression too, is that like you always want to... I feel like, at least for me, like I always want to help other people because I don't want anyone else to feel this way. But then in doing that, I forget that like I am at risk of feeling like that. And then like if I don't check in on myself and like take time to like take care of myself, I will completely forget. And then all of a sudden I'm like having a panic attack and I don't know why. And I'm freaking out and crying and I don't want to get up. And I'm just like, there are a bunch of thoughts that I just hadn't been dealing with because I've been so focused on other things. But yeah, it's definitely like a hard balance to find.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like, it's really about balance, and sometimes we don't really balance it. Because like you could be telling someone, like encouraging them, and you know, and then you find yourself like, wait, like I haven't even been doing that. Like, it's kind of like we're hypocrites at the moment. I don't know whether it's like a good thing because we are helping people, you know, but also like there's us. It's definitely a difficult thing to battle with. And sometimes you even find yourself like using it to cope and like to cover up and try to forget what you're going through.
Say I had like a few bad days in a month, and I'm not really checking in on myself, and I tend to like, I guess the word would be like generalize. So if I had like a few bad days in October, I would say like October was such a bad month. But if I'm checking in with myself every day and writing it down, I can kind of combat those thoughts and like look and be like, okay, well, you had 3 days in October where you really journaled and said that you felt really bad, but there were also a lot of positive days that you're not even thinking about. And like I had like a list of like anxiety inducing thoughts, and one of them was just like overgeneralizing things and compiling like bad events, because it kind of, I don't know if like forces yourself to believe that like the whole entire year was bad or like the whole entire month was bad, and then you kind of shut out all the positive things that you're not necessarily seeing. But I don't know, I just thought it was interesting.
I always say this to my friends, like, although there are, you know, it's already scientifically proven that, you know, people can be depressed where they have to get medical attention, or where it goes to those extremes. For me, like, I firmly believe that somewhere inside of you, like, you're able to, I guess, go against whatever that is going on in your brain. Like, we always have the power inside of us. Like, of course, like you yourself, you didn't have the confidence and didn't believe that you can overcome these things. So I really believe that it's really up to us, no matter what, even if it might be hard, especially for some, because you can easily tell someone, oh, you'll get over it eventually. And some people can't. They do have that willpower in a sense to overcome those things. So
yeah, and it's definitely like one thing, because this past year I went through like a really traumatic experience, or I was dealing with a stalker, and I had really bad PTSD, and my depression hit me very hard, to the point where I had to be like hospitalized again. Like, I wasn't doing well, and like, it's not a choice, but it's like a conscious effort.
Yeah.
Like, when I was in PHP, partial hospitalization program, we learned about 2 different types of therapies, and it was cognitive behavioral therapy, and then we learned about dialectical behavioral therapy. For me, dialectical behavioral therapy helped me more, and I guess it's just because like I understood it more, but the difference between the two is, for cognitive behavioral therapy, there's like a thought triangle, and it's kind of a description of how like our thoughts affect, I think it's our feelings, and then our feelings affect our actions, and it's a cycle. So if you're thinking like angry thoughts, it affects how you feel, and then it affects your actions. Yeah. So you have to learn how to catch yourself, I guess, and like reverse that cycle, and then you do that through coping skills and different techniques and stuff. And then dialectical behavioral therapy is the balance between the emotional mind, the rational and the rational mind, so you can get to the wise mind. And so I would always, when I was dealing with my PTSD with like my stalker, which was like an actual outside threat, it wasn't in my head. Yeah. I found myself in a constant battle between like my emotional mind or my rational mind. And it was never in between. I was either trying to rationalize the situation and figure out why it was happening to me, like what I could have done better, what I could have done to change it. Or I was thinking like, oh my God, I'm going to die. Like, he's going to murder me. Like, something's going to happen. Like, I don't feel safe anywhere. I can't go anywhere. I can't leave my house. And the way that I learned to deal with it is really taking it one step at a time. And it's congratulating yourself for even the smallest things. Like, there was one day I really felt like I couldn't get out of bed. I had been laying in bed for a week. I was wearing the same clothes. It was kind of gross, but like I was really depressed. Like, I didn't want to get out of bed. And I remember I said to myself, you know what? Get up, get dressed, get back in bed. Right. So I got up, I got dressed, I got back in bed, and that's a huge step. Yeah, for real. You know? Yeah. And maybe it's something that, like, other people are doing, you know, very easily. But for me, that was really tough. Like, that was a battle getting out of that bed, because I was just scared. Like, I didn't want to move. So if you're struggling with depression right now and you feel like you can't get out of bed, you don't want to shower, like, even if you just go and wipe your face with a makeup wipe, like, you'll do good for you. Like, you are awesome. That's an amazing step, because that's a step in the right direction. Even if it's a small one, like, again, everyone's different. Like, a small step for someone else could be a big step for another person, you know? Right. So just, like, don't be so hard on yourself. Like, it's okay. Exactly. You know? Yeah. But,
what would you, I know you're still, like, dealing with depression, but of course, as we grow and mature, like, what would you tell, like, your younger self at the time? Because I think, I mean, most of us, like, our mentality changes over time.
Honestly, like, good for you for, like, getting out of bed and going to school. Like, even if you didn't get the best grades, even if you got a C on an assignment that you know, really didn't try on, but you completed, like, you know what? You completed it. Right. So you tried a little bit. Like, I feel like as a kid, I was very hard on myself because of, like, having the adult complex. Like, I felt like there was a lot at home that I was trying to figure out. And so, like, I don't know, everything else just became, like, very, very hard for me. And I feel like I didn't give myself enough credit. Like, as a kid, I felt like I went through a lot of stuff that a kid shouldn't have to go through or deal with. Like, good job, girl. Like, I feel like I was so hard on myself back then, but I look back now and I'm just like, you know what? Like, for a 12-year-old, like, you handled that pretty well. Yeah. You know? And back then, like, I didn't have a lot of friends. Like, I felt like I was just going to be alone, and maybe I was kind of isolating myself a little bit, just because when I'm depressed, I tend to do that. I, like, cut people out. But I look at my life now, and I feel like maybe I couldn't see it before, or I just didn't have very much of it. But I look at, like, all the people that I have in my life now, and how supportive they all are of me and how much I love them. And back then, I felt hopeless, and I didn't really feel like there was a way out. I never felt like I would necessarily have, like, true friends, or, like, feel like I had a home that like was really nurturing and caring, and
Yeah.
now I look at my life and like I do have that. And so there was kind of a silver lining a little bit, even if I'm still dealing with stuff now.
Yeah.
And I wish that I could go back and like tell my younger self that like to just like hang on, because like things will get easier, like,
Yeah.
you know, things will brighten up a little bit.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I can literally imagine you, like your older self talking
Yeah.
to your younger
just like
self.
holding her hands, being like, just hang on, I swear. It's okay.
But she can't see you. You're like,
Yeah,
who's
I know.
that?
I'm screaming.
Yeah, but literally, yeah, that's the same thing I would tell my younger self.
Yeah.
We were so hard on ourselves, really, and we thought that was the end of it.
Mm-hmm.
I think I would tell myself is that the things that you're going through or facing right now, they're only equipping you for the tougher things that you're about to, even if like the same thing, like I had to experience like adult problems at a young age. I kind of see my problems and my trials in the past as like a blessing, just because they really help you for, you know, the future things. And there's so many resources and people out there to really help you. And it's okay to not be okay, like as cliche it seems now, but it's true. Like it's okay, like we're human and we experience things, and if you resisted it so much, you know, it would become even worse. So yeah, if only we could talk to our younger self.
I wish. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I would help her.
Now, one thing that I really wanted to talk about is how depression is displayed and like understood now in social media and on TV, in society. It's insane. So like most of you guys have seen, there's literally posts like people are so easy to say how depressed they are, or how, like, you know, it's a common saying, like, oh, I'm gonna kill myself, like,
Yeah.
you know, and I don't want to be like that annoying person, like, hey, don't say that, you know.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna be like upfront like that, but I do believe it's come to a point where it's become kind of like it's a normal thing, you know.
Yeah.
And it's so normalized, and they forget that it's an actual issue.
Yeah.
So how do you see what's going on right now?
It's kind of like interesting, because I feel like too, I think people forget that like depression is a different experience for everyone. I mean, there's even different types of depression. There's situational, seasonal, severe, and I feel like sometimes like just because my experience with depression like doesn't fit somebody else's definition of it, like means that I didn't go through it, or like vice versa. Like it's kind of like, I feel like because it's become so like normalized on social media, like I think some people, not everyone, because I feel like there are a lot of like really understanding people, at least now more than ever,
Right.
but I feel like a lot of people have like one idea of like what it is.
Yeah.
When like people experience depression after they like lose a loved one, and it maybe lasts for a few months, and then they start to like feel more at ease. And then some people have experienced it since they were like a kid, and so like even like for some of the people in my life, like my depression is very severe, and I've been dealing with it for a very long time.
Right.
But just because I was hospitalized for my depression and mine has like been very severe, doesn't mean that like how I feel with my depression, even if I've like had to be hospitalized for it, like doesn't mean that somebody else has like felt exactly the same way,
Just
even
in
though
a different.
just in a different way, even though they haven't had to be like
Yeah.
hospitalized for it. Like again, like as you said in the beginning, like you can really only understand yourself. And so I just feel like it's just very different for everyone. And I think that like social media nowadays kind of displays it as like one
thing, one feeling. Yeah.
And it's so much more complex than that, because yes, I feel like I experience it every day, but it's like on different levels. Like some days like I'll still feel depressed, like I get migraines a lot, like I get like aches and pains like in my body a lot, and my psychiatrist like said it's just from like the overall like stress. You can experience it subconsciously,
Right.
You can be consciously depressed, like, and it's like if I post like a picture of me like really happy, or like my entire Instagram feed just like looks like I've been really happy and doing really well, like people just assume like, oh, maybe like she's not really dealing with it, or she doesn't have like a lot of issues or problems, because like everyone's really good at like putting on a mask.
Yes, for real.
You know?
Yeah.
And you know what? Like I think it's like it's okay to like post on Instagram and be like, hey, like how's your day going? Like I don't feel good. Like let's all be here for each other, because like if you don't feel good, like message me. Like does that make sense?
No, that makes sense. I don't know if I'm like just ranting. No. That makes a lot of sense, because a song that I'm like really into, Billie Eilish, where she says like I don't want to be you anymore, and she's initially just talking to herself in the mirror, how she doesn't like feeling this way, like she literally hates herself because I guess she was going through the depression as well. And one of the things she said was how she wishes she could feel what she says. Like if you ask someone, how are you, and she says, oh, I'm good, like she wishes she could feel good. And how like we're constantly putting on a mask, especially on social media, that we're okay, but it's kind of hurting yourself and like smacking yourself in the face by doing that, and instead of like confronting and admitting that we're okay, you know. I think it's all about being more open-minded and being true to yourself and your thoughts. Is what we need more of in regards to like what's being seen on TV and social media. I don't know, there's a lot of like movies coming out about depression and suicide, but it's like, I don't know, sometimes I feel like it's only telling what's on the surface of what it really is. Oh, so we're talking about 13 Reasons Why. I didn't watch the whole thing. I really couldn't, but you know.
I actually like threw up. Like I got sick. I understood what they were trying to do by like going into as much detail as possible, because I think that
can we like what's a do you know like an overview of 13 Reasons Why, because I never really watched it, but there's so much debates on it.
Basically it's a show that kind of touches on a lot of not controversial but just like very real topics like rape or suicide, stuff like that, and it like intense bullying. Like it takes place in a high school. I get what they're doing, because I think that by depicting scenes so realistically and like showing a lot more detail than like any other show might like give to you, you kind of get the full effect of what these people may have gone through, like if you had actually seen this happen to like real people and not just characters. So like I get what they're trying to do in that aspect, but it can also just be like very triggering, especially if you've gone through something like that and you watch the show. So it's like it's like I feel like it's a weird borderline between like insensitive but also trying to show the world like what people actually do go through, and like
because it makes you think like who wrote it like that, you know, like did they even experience it for themselves, or are they gathering information from like
from other like one of the last scenes in the second season, which if anyone has watched the show, you probably know exactly what scene I'm talking about. It's very hard to watch. And it recently, something similar to that scene happened at a high school.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Around here. I actually, like, got sick, like, watching that scene. Because it definitely hit me really hard that has happened to someone. So, I mean, they got their message.
Because, like, I feel like they were trying to show that, okay, this stuff happens. But then it also gives people ideas. Yeah. Because I feel like if it never came out, then... Yeah. I mean, not saying that it doesn't happen around the world already. It's just, like...
Yeah. It, like... It's hard. I feel like it's such a borderline because it's, like... I feel like it can be really insensitive to people that have either gone through it, or it can cause, like... Yeah, it can give people, like... ideas of like if they're bad people and they're watching the show, it can give them ideas of what to do to someone else. Right. It's just it can be very triggering on like for like both like people like bad people and then like people that have also gone through it.
I think like as much as it can these shows or these movies influence society, people will take it in different ways. But if their motivation was to bring awareness of these things, I think it's also up to us how we're going to handle it. Like,
Yeah.
Even, like, for instance, I always use the example of, like, someone knows the harmful things that smoking or, like, doing drugs, you know, does to them. They can still continue to do it. Like, you know, we see these things around the world. So what are we doing about it? You know? I don't know. It's so easy for us to see things. But it's so hard for us to actually, like, take it into consideration for ourselves and, like, dealing with those type of situations.
And, like, one other thing I feel like a lot of, like, movies and TV shows kind of, I guess, perpetuate about, like, depression, too, is, like, they'll, like, end on, like, a happy ending. And, like...
I think that's one thing that they shouldn't do. I feel like, because depression is definitely an ongoing process. You know, I feel like, because they're kind of giving unrealistic outcomes. Like, I don't know.
For me, like, I don't know. I could say that right now I feel like I'm at, like a happier part of my life. Yeah. But depression is still there. Like, emotions are so complex. It's never just, like, you just feel happy. I actually have, like, an emotional, like, wheel. And it shows how there are, like, main emotions, secondary emotions, and you're constantly feeling, like, multiple emotions at a time. Like, I don't, like, right now, like, I'm very happy to be here, but I'm also, like, really anxious because what if I say something crazy? Like, I don't know. Right. You know? So it's, like, when I feel like TV shows and movies are very good at depicting, like, one singular emotion as the outcome, when I feel like life is a mixture of all of them, you know? So it was something that I was thinking about earlier, but it's a technique that my therapist taught me. She has, like, a very interesting way of looking at emotions. Not something that may help everyone, but it really, like, helped me a lot when it comes to understanding, like, how I'm feeling. And when I used to say, like, I hate my depression, I hate it, like, I wish it would go away, I wish I didn't have it, why should I have to deal with it? And then she told me to take a moment, close my eyes, take a deep breath, and imagine my depression if it was a person standing in front of me. And I could ask it questions, you know, like, why are you here? You know, when did you first, you know, come up? Like, and by doing that, you know, she was like, if you could, like, imagine your depression as a person, like, what would they look like? And the first thing that came to mind was the word broken. It would be a very broken, a very sad person. And when I asked them, like, you know, why are you here? The first thing that came to mind was, like, to protect me. Because when I think about it, my depression is like a protective mechanism. After everything that I've gone through, it's my way of attempting not to be hurt again. You know, by isolating myself, by becoming irritable so nobody wants to talk to me. If I cut everyone out of my life, you know, nobody can hurt me anymore. Right. And after being hurt by so many people, that's just, like, something that just, like, happens in me. Like, if things start to get stressful, if life starts to get stressful, if one person and I, like, have a fight or a falling out, like, I tend to want to just cut everybody out. And that's when my depression really starts setting in. Because, again, it's a mix of things. Like, I'll be isolating people, I'll be irritable, I'll be really, really sad. Like, you know, maybe I won't eat or I'll eat too much. Like, all of these things start happening. And I realize it's, like, my brain trying to protect me, but in turn, it also hurts me. It's hard to see it that way because of how it makes you feel. Because you don't want to feel that way. Like, you don't want to isolate people. You don't want to feel irritable. You want to be able to get out of bed. But when I started seeing my depression as something or someone that was trying to protect me, and it was there because as a kid, like, I didn't have a lot of protection or I felt unsafe, it started to kind of make sense. And it was the same thing with my anxiety. Like, I feel like it's my brain taking all of these preventative measures to make sure that I don't, you know, undergo any harm. Right. When I think about it that way, if I have an anxious thought that's like, with my PTSD, like, no, you can't go outside today because he's going to be there. Like, he's going to be outside. He's going to be waiting for you. You need to stay inside. Like, you're going to die. You're going to die. Like, he's going to murder you. Obviously, like, the first reaction to those thoughts might be to panic because it's like, oh my God, you're right. Like, oh my God, like, he's going to be out there. He's going to get me. Yeah. But then if I take a second and I go, okay, hang on. You're trying to tell me that the world might be unsafe. And that if I go outside today, something bad might happen. And you know what? That's realistic. That's valid. After everything you've gone through, it's completely valid to feel that way. Yeah. But also, there are other parts of your brain that aren't anxiety and there aren't depression.
Yeah.
You know, like if I think about happiness as a person, or if I think about, you know, security as a person, they can talk to me too.
Definitely.
And I think anxiety and depression tend to overwhelm them a little bit sometimes.
Kind of like, what is that movie?
It's, I know what you're talking about.
Inside Out?
Inside Out, yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so basically kind of like the Inside Out concept. Like, you have to remember to listen to the other emotions in your brain as well when they're talking to you. And when anxiety and depression are overwhelming those emotions, it's like you don't hear them. But when you kind of make a conscious effort to be like, okay, take a second. What is it trying to tell you other than you're going to die? Like, what is, you know, the main reason it's telling you this? Logically, you went through a traumatic event with a stalker. Obviously, that's going to have a traumatic impact on your brain. PTSD, you're not going to want to go out. Like, you're going to feel scared. And, you know, validate yourself. Like, that's, yeah, like, you want to stay inside. Like, after you had a stalker, like, yeah like, that's normal.
Totally.
You know, but you can't live life just being afraid.
Yeah, that's definitely a method I actually encountered. I forgot where I got that, but it was about fear. Like address, like I did it before. I made a letter to my fear, like as if it was a person. Like, because the things you have to put in this letter that you're telling, you know, your fear, talk to as a person, say, you know, how you're feeling, and really tell your fear what are your goals in life. Because I feel like if you are aware and really know what you want, you know, you'll be able to know when this fear is coming, and you'll be able to address it right away. Because everything you fear is on this piece of paper, but also you're able for yourself, you know, you're able to tell fear when you want it to come, because sometimes fear can help us in life, you know. So it's not like it's only one, you know, like in Inside Out, you know, you need all of these emotions to really rationalize and like understand what you're going through. So it's just, I think it's all, I mean, we all can't be perfect, but I think it's just trying to balance everything, because depression is definitely everything, you know. So I guess to close on this, what is some advice for those listening, like if they're, you know, dealing with depression right now? What would you say to them?
I mean, I know it's kind of like the typical thing that everyone says.
I know it's
like,
cliche, but also like, you know,
you're not alone. You're not
it's
alone.
It's okay,
like,
babe, you're fine.
You're really not alone. Like, just like how I want to like reach out to my younger self and be like, just hold on, like it's gonna get easier. Like, I want to do that for other people too. You know, because if you are committed to, you know, utilizing whatever resources are given to you, it will get easier. You know, but I think that's like a thing that a lot of people kind of take for granted. Like, a lot of people will just kind of be like, oh, like it'll get easier one day, and like I don't really have to do anything. Like, it's definitely a fight. And so like, kudos to you if like you're really, you know, going to therapy every week and like really like trying to like utilize your coping skills and stuff. I feel like I'm using the word utilize.
You're fine.
But I don't know, to me it was just kind of like hang in there is like the biggest like thing that pops into my head, just because that's kind of what I had to do in order to get to where I am today. Just like hang in there, and like if you are hanging in there, I'm so proud of you.
Right.
You know, because that's not an easy thing to do. To get up every day and feel that way, especially like, I don't know how to describe this. Like, again, everyone feels depression on different levels. So like on a day where like I may not have been able to get up out of bed because of how I was feeling, there are people who feel that exact same way and are getting up out of bed. You know? So like, if you're one of those people, like, you're amazing. Like, you are a literal soldier. I admire you so much. Anyone who's fighting depression, like, you're an inspiration to me and other people that are fighting it too. And
that really opened my mind, because people would see, you know, people with depression like as if they're weak, or they're like kind of like an outcast in society, or they're not doing well, or they're not really helping themselves. But because like it is a battle, and it's one they're continuing, but you know, even if it's hard, like they're still battling with it, and it takes a lot of power internally. And I really applaud those who are still facing it. That doesn't mean you're weak. Like, you know, I feel like they're one of the strongest people in this world if they're able to combat all these bad thoughts, you know?
You know, one thing that I always used to do too is like I would wear combat boots all the time because I would always say like every day is a battle and like I'm gonna win.
Hey Bonders, before we get straight into the episode, I have one question for you. Have you ever thought about starting your own podcast? I know when I was trying to get Pause, Sip, and Ponder off the ground, I had a lot of questions like, how do I record an episode? How do I get my show into all these apps people like to listen to? And how do I make money from my podcast? The answer to every one of those questions is really simple. Anchor. Anchor is a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing your podcast. Best of all, it's 100% free and super easy to use. And now, Anchor can match you with great sponsors who want to advertise on your podcast. That means you can get paid to podcast right away. In fact, that's what I'm doing right now by reading this ad. But really, since the beginning, Anchor has helped me feel more confident in putting my episodes out there. And if you had a passion to put your voice out there and you're really eager to talk to the world and share your ideas, your interests, and your passions, you need to start with Anchor. Go to anchor.fm/start. That's anchor.fm/start to join me and the diverse community of podcasters already using Anchor. Alright, that's it for today's episode. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. And shout out to Sean, Bailey's boyfriend, who actually thought of the title for today's episode, Spilling the Anxiety, which is very, very clever. It's actually pretty hard for me to think of titles at times. I don't want it to be too corny or too cliche or too boring. So thank you for that, Sean. And yeah, hopefully this episode encouraged you, gave you some hope in whatever you guys are going through. And remember, I'm such an open book. I love hearing other people's journeys and stories and their life experiences. So please, if you want to tell me, don't be hesitant, and whatever is said is always confidential. I'd love to hear you guys' story. It really inspires me, really pushes me to do and continue what I'm doing. And remember that everybody has a story. One thing that I didn't take notice of when dealing with depression at the time was that other people are also dealing with it. And depression can really shift your perspective and where you think it's only about yourself. The world is against you and you're alone, but that's not what it is, and everybody deals with it. So I'd love to hear you guys' stories. You can directly message me on Instagram if you would like. That's at pau.turla, pau.turla. You can record a voice message here on Anchor, or you can email me, which way you want to go. So and remember, whatever is said is also confidential. But if you'd like to share your story and hopefully encourage other people, because remember, this is a community and this is not only my podcast, it's my friends, it's everybody's. So I'd love to do that. And remember to tell your friends about it. If this episode is specifically for them, if they're dealing with depression or something like that, please let them know about this podcast and this episode. And yeah, I love you guys so much. Thank you for the support. I'll see you guys next week, and have a wonderful, wonderful weekend.